special National Executive Committee meeting in Irene in Pretoria today, the first such meeting since President Cyril Ramaphosa guided the party to a win in the general elections. Let's get some analysis on this now. Political analyst Professor Somadoda Fikeni joins us now live via Skype. Professor, always a pleasure having you on the program. Let's just start off by getting a sense of how much pressure is President Ramaphosa under to, on one hand, reduce his cabinet, but on the other, still, I guess, forge unity within his party.
He is under tremendous pressure to balance the internal party needs, but also the country's expectations, with the reduced numbers in parliament, and also pressure to have more women and youth, as well as the fact that he has to streamline the cabinet. The pressure is on him, and he has to prove that he is in charge of that particular process come this meeting today.
Well, Ramaphosa says they must hit the ground running as people are, waiting for service delivery promises that were made. We have a clip on this. I want to play it. Just listen in, Professor.
Through this election, we as the African National Congress, we are saying we have heard our people. We have heard the voice of our people. We have heard what our people want. Our people have given us a clear message as we were going through the streets of our townships.
So, Professor, Cyril Ramaphosa became leader of the ANC in December 2017. How would you describe his ability to bring about change during his time in office?
Well, I would say it is because of impatience that we do not realize within a space of 12 months that with such a narrow victory that he got, he was able to institute quite a number of changes, especially through the legal processes, the commissions of inquiry, where he instituted one in SARS and then was able to follow through by firing the lead, the MPA, the same thing. And he has started with the investment conferences. But again, those are yet to yield results. The main thing, what is he going to do with the economy?
Yeah, he had to deal with Eskom being one of them, establishing, as you mentioned, these judicial inquiries that have exposed alleged corruption. We have a clip in this regard. Let's listen in, Professor.
With this election, they were saying state capture must be history. We must never, ever, ever, ever go back to state capture. Zondo Commission must be things of the past.
Professor, let's look at some of the numbers. The ANC received just over 57% of the vote. In 2014, if you look at some of the numbers, they received just over 62%. Will this have any sort of material effect on how President Ramaphosa tries to implement his policies?
It may have, especially if ANC factors in the fact that the local government elections had reduced the ANC just to around 54%. And therefore, this kind of recovery might be attributed to him because it could have been worse. No party has gone to election with so many scandals, so many divisions, and still prevail. And that in itself can only give him courage to build from there.
If we look at the DA, Professor, we see that in 2014 they had about 22.23%. They got about 20.77%. Can you put the blame at the foot of Mmusi Maimane? Is he under fire, or is it, as I think Athol Trollop said, a collective effort and responsibility?
I do think that it cannot just be apportioned to Mmusi Maimane alone. It's deep structural issues I predicted 10 years ago that DA would peak just before reaching 25% for a simple reason. It had always been recruiting at its different phases certain racial groups. And when you recruit others at the expense of the others, they might think you have shifted your focus, and this creates a sense of alienation. We have seen this revolving door where it looks like some of the conservative whites have gone to the Freedom Front Plus whilst they were trying to get more blacks to come in. It's a structural problem that they have to deal with. And besides, if they were to try and remove Musi Maimane, then it will confirm the notion that any black leader who comes to DA is committing a political suicide in the sense of rising and then being deposed.
So you reckon Mr. Maimane is safe for now?
He is not safe to the extent that his future will be debated, and the fact that he was already dealing with a fragmented DA, he will have some time but a very uncomfortable position.
Let's look at some of the other parties that have made gains in this elections. You mentioned the Freedom Front Plus. We also see gains for the IFP, EFF, and then we have a party like the Al Jamaa party that is coming up as well. What do you make of these parties coming through?
I do think that there are specific reasons for each one of these parties. For example, the Freedom Front Plus. When the Land Act question, the language issues in the universities and schools came up, transformation in sports, change of street names and the statues, they might have felt a sense of besiegement and therefore decided to go for the party which was clearer on these issues in trying to defend their interest, because DA was in an awkward position and vacillating. The IFP, the demise of the NFP after the sickness of the leadership is actually the one that I would say is a direct correlation where the breakaway party is now weakened, so people are returning to the IFP, but also the divisions within the ANC, as well as the fact that President Zuma is no longer the president, so people who might have moved to support him have gone back to IFP. As for the EFF, the fact that it has been very influential on the policy issues on land, several others, and in putting pressure on holding ANC accountable, I think that can be attributed to those factors in terms of why they have grown. But they had expectations of growing higher than they have, so it looks like their growth will be incremental as well.
The IFP, we understand, is holding a media briefing today at around 11 o'clock, so we'll monitor that very closely. Professor, I just want to ask you, with regards to elections in any country, it has the potential to divide a nation. From the campaigning you've seen, it's no doubt been robust. Do you think we as a nation suffer the consequences of a highly contested election?
I doubt, though, because if you look at the elections 2014, the name-calling, the divisions and the racial divisions at that might have been worse then. This time around, it was the focus on issues rather than the racial groups and so forth. And Cyril Ramaphosa and other party leaders may build on that in trying to bring the nation closer, but also the appeal to the business sector, the civil society, has been quite a positive recognition that government alone cannot do all these things.
Look, the 48 parties contesting the national elections, it's a record number. Does that number of parties and, as we've been discussing, this robust and intense campaigning, point to a maturing multi-party democratic system of governance?
Not necessarily. I do think that smaller parties and individuals saw that the big party ANC and the DA were experiencing problems. So they saw this vulnerability as an opportunity for them. But of course, others might just be the fact that in a country whose economy and the business opportunities are not that great, the quickest thing now is to join politics and or else to start your own church as a pastor. So they might just be taking chances. But what we've seen is that no matter how many parties we have, the number of parties that get to parliament has remained constant.
Look, it was important for political parties to tick all the boxes on the campaign trail. No doubt you would have heard service delivery issues, job creation, basically standard repertoire on the campaign trail. But what do you think was missing in the messaging by political parties?
Well, I do think that what was missing among the political parties was the message of social cohesion, because besides the effort to deal with the legacy issues, the socio-economic transformation, the nation still has to assure all different things that we do need to have a united future. But also the emphasis on the youth and women was not as much as it should have been, given the crisis that we are facing.
You know, one of the issues was with regards to apathy among the youth. It was picked up by the SADC Observer Mission. I think the AU Observer Mission as well cited it as one of the recommendations in order to get more programs involved in place to involve youth and get them, I guess, to the polls. How do you think that can best be done?
I do think that a national program that doesn't wait for elections but deal with the conscientization of people to appreciate their sense of agency and ability to see that they can change things within the existing system is very important. Because right now it might look like the youth are exploiting the social media, exploiting the protest as the space to voice their grievances. They are not trusting of the system. And the second part would have been to be the political part, the social movements, to engage youth, to involve youth as much as possible.
Yeah, lots to discuss, lots of issues. No doubt it has been a very, very interesting elections 2019. Political analyst Professor Somadoda Fikeni, thank you as always, sir. Well, IFP President Prince Mangas